Clear. Welcome back from lunch. I pushed the lecture back 30 minutes so you and I could eat a little more. So it's just tight. So let's do it. I did a little bit more lecture prep, and hopefully you got a lot out of just the intro to events. But now we're going to take our events and we're going to start to use them and actually build some things. So before we were kind of just like, put this bobblehead, this is the OG mat thing. It's like heavily erased now, but we're going to remove that stuff. Those were kind of like fake deliverables. We're going to actually use them to build our weird, cool Complementor app. So let's go through what we're going to learn now. We're going to I'm going to show you how to use DOM content loaded, which is the event that says, hey, the DOM's ready. The tree is built. Like, we're ready to go. I'm going to now start to talk about the difference between const, let, and var, so that we're like, why do we have them? What's the point? And I'm going to now make the transition, no more for loops. I'm going to use iterators, just like in Ruby, like there's for each, which is each, map, all that stuff. Then we're going to start to relate the concept of CRUD, like we've done with databases, like create, read, update, and destroy. And we're going to start to use that and think about the same analogy as like DOM manipulation is like CRUD, where we create elements, we update elements, we delete elements, and create, read, update, and create elements, update elements, read elements, and destroy elements. Cool. We're going to play around with this thing called data set, and we're going to understand what the heck prevent default does. And yeah, if we get to it, if not, I'll do it tomorrow. Implicit versus explicit return, what the heck that means. So our app so far, we can do all these weird things like I'm going to start to remove these. Weird M tag, we removed that. We show our nice list of complements, and we have a nice styling. And we also, this morning, we found our first button and alerted hello. That's, who cares? Anything we click should have map parrot added to it. I'm going to unfortunately remove that. And also any hover, to hover over any LI and have its background color change to pink, I'm going to remove that unfortunately as well. I was getting ready to leave for lunch, and my brain turned off, and I just went like, I was just doing this. I don't know why. I was just like, this one's pink. No, this one's pink. I was like, okay, my brain's not working anymore. So I'm going to remove these, and then we're actually going to start to build some real features. So let's get started. So before I actually build these new deliverables down here, I'm just going to start to refactor what we have. And also, just before I even do that, I'm just going to show you what DOM content loaded does. Okay? So, and again, same thing to apply. If you're nervous, please have that as motivation to get better and to lean on those nerves and to try and like participate. And second, ask questions in general. If you're not going to be the only one with that question. So DOM content loaded, what does that do? Well, remember today is Tuesday. So yesterday, I was talking about how we load JavaScript files, and I was like, just put it at the bottom. You could also take this and put it at the top and call defer. Everything still works. Great. Oh, I did another cool thing. Look, all the images are different. I will show you how I did that in a second. There's so many cats. Cool. So this still all worked. If I remove this defer, right, it broke. We don't have any of our cats. None of our JavaScript is working. Right? Cannot read property remove of null. Like, what does that mean? Oh yeah, the very first line, I'm trying to find our M tag, but it's not there yet because the document didn't load yet. That's why we were using this. Does anyone have any Does anyone want me to review why this just broke? Starting there. No hands, even little. Okay, cool. So we know why that broke, right? It's the order of things. So here's how you can use an event to keep this code just loaded just like this. And again, I want to show you all these things because you're going to find them in the wild world of the web. They're all techniques that people use. They've evolved over time. Some are older, some are newer. This one is a very valid reason to do it. Like it's just another way to kind of protect yourself from not looking for trying to find elements and nothing's there. So let's do it. Go ahead.
I got a question on the head. Like if you actually put the char set on meta, it works better, or it just has to be actually applied on the square, the Unicode?
You mean like if I put like meta here?
Like meta char set UTF, it's gonna take it on the script too?
No, I don't think so. I think I don't need, this is like, okay, so there is nice things to have for different edge cases or different purposes. So I don't think that saying that meta UTF-8 applies to the files that are loading externally. It just applies to everything inside of this file. And this is just, there are a lot of base level things that just get assumed. Like if you don't put anything, it might automatically already put UTF-8 depending on the browser. There's just a bunch of extra data that works in different ways that we can look up. Yeah.
So I have to declare it both on the main and both on
If you want, yep. Cool. Yep, exactly. You're talking about like the meta tag and like putting like UTF-8 in there. Yep, cool. Yep, great question. Okay, so let's go through this. So right now our JavaScript is broken, right? We do not have defer. We do not have it loaded in the bottom of the page. So a technique using event handling, and event listeners, get out of here, is I can say, this is the code that changes the photo. I'll talk about it in a second. Let's just not distract ourselves and try and look at it. So right now we can't find this element. And if I look at UL tag, oops, that was not even defined because the code broke before we even got to it because of this. It just like stopped running the rest of the file. So what we can do is we just know that this M tag isn't loaded yet. This would, if I commented this out, when I refresh, this one will also break, right? UL tag inner HTML, because UL tag is empty, right? UL tag, even though it's here now, it's because it's trying to find it before the document's ready. So what we do is anything that we want to find, we have and if we don't want to use defer or put the JavaScript file at the bottom, we have to wrap it in this kind of thing. We say, okay, document dot add event listener. I think it's DOM content, if I can spell, content loaded function. And then we can basically take all of the code where there's different options that we can do this in, but we can take all the code where we're doing event handling, like finding elements, and we can just put it in there. So for example, if I wanted to take all this code, I can say only run this code once the DOM is loaded. So when this event fires, it means the DOM is ready, like our whole DOM tree got built, then run this code. And now this code works. I have new errors, which I'll look at in a second, but all this code works. The new error, it's because we're still trying to find DOM elements, right? First button tag, it doesn't know what that is. It's null because it's trying to find it before the DOM is ready. So literally anything that we will use, there's two techniques. If we have all of these things here, like this is looking for DOM elements, this is looking for DOM elements, this is adding something based on a DOM element. So basically these ones right here, we would also need to put in. Right, and what else is here? And here too. Uncaught error cannot read property of add event listener of null. So literally everything that we wrote would need to go inside, like we're right here, of this DOM content loaded. And this will say, only run this code once the DOM is ready. This is when this event fires. So now if I refresh, everything works. Any questions on that? Go ahead.
Question about the difference between that and defer. So with this method, I mean, it seems pretty clear that like if you just leave things outside of that event listener, they can happen before the DOM is loaded.
Yes.
Is there any way to recreate that if you're using defer, or just that whole file is going to fire after?
The whole file.
Okay,
Yeah.
so you can't do like a skip action or something.
Not within that. Nope. If you wanted just parts, it would be like this. Yeah. So when you start, so that's the other technique you'll see all the time, and you can either you can use any of them, but this just means like, hey, if you're finding DOM elements, wait until the DOM is ready, then you can start to find them. That's what that's how this works. Great. All right. So I'm not going to use this method. Just want to show you it. You'll see other examples and other ways people use DOM content loaded, but I wanted to help you, like, show you why they use it and how to use it. So I'm going to Command Z. Goodbye. Cool. And everything should be broken again. Great. And I'm going to now take our file and put it back down here. Save, refresh. Back in business. Great. Okay. Now, the next thing, if I look in our README, I want to refactor my for loop and use for each. Okay? So we're going to put together some of the things we've already learned, like callbacks. And first I'm going to go through why we have const-let and var, what the difference between all of them are. Okay, so we have this for loop. If I call var here, here's what's going to happen. There's really two scopes of variables. There is, and I'll show you both of them. So when you use var. So here's what happens. I have var, and I'm looping through this thing, and I say var I equals 0, and each time I go through this loop, it increases I 1. So question, this is inside, oops. This loop, where is it at? There it is. This loop, this I is inside this loop. In Ruby, if there was like some variable or something inside of a loop, would you have access to it outside of that loop? No. So if I type in I here, what do you think it's going to be? Null, 0, 125. What? So if you use var, what happens is in any, like a block scope, like a loop, you will still have access to it anywhere else in this file, right? Like if you do a for loop and you're messing with it, you think like, oh no, my I should be nothing. It's still there. So if you use I again and you just like add more things to it, like you might like get messed up if you're using var. So how var works is you have two scopes that var works in. One is like the global scope, like this, like I don't want to get into that yet. I will be like here in this file because I don't have it in a function. So I is like anywhere in this file I have access to I now, even though I put it inside of this loop. Like after I define it here, anywhere down here beyond, I can mess with I. It's not really great. We only wanted this I for like the loop and that's it. Another thing we can do though is if we put this in a function. What do we call this? Add li tags to DOM. Cool. So if I wrap this whole thing, this whole for loop, in a function called add li tags to DOM, right? So I have this now as a function. First, will my li tag still be on my page if I refresh? Who thinks yes? Who thinks no? Yep. So so this is what the page looks like right now. It has all the cats. All I did was put all this stuff into a function that I just made called add li tags to DOM. Will all these cats still be there? Who thinks yes? Who thinks no? Okay. Refresh. All right, they're not there anymore. No errors. Why did they go away? Go ahead.
Because you just define the function without calling it.
Exactly. So, right, that's my function. Here, let's go here. Right, that's my function. It's so long, it was like, I'm not going to show you all of it, but that's my function. So I need to call it. Now all of them are here, right? So I'm going to call it right below where I defined it. And I'll explain why I'm doing this. All right. So now I refresh, all my cats are there because I'm calling the function I just defined. That's all I did is I wrapped my loop in a function. So here it is, add things to DOM. If I type in I in here, what do we think it's going to be now? Any guesses? Go ahead. 125? All right, any other guesses? I used var. 125, 125, going once, going twice. It is, oh, sorry. It is undefined. So there's two scopes for var. One is everything has access to it. The other one is only the function has access to it. Confusing. I'm going to say it again. I is defined inside of this function, right? Here's this function. I is right here. Outside of that function, and we'll put one not in the for loop. See, we're outside of the for loop. The for loop's here. I'm going to say I inside of the function. Okay? But again, not in the for loop. We're still after the for loop. We shouldn't have access to I. Refresh. First one, I'm inside of the function. It's 125, right? Right here. But reference error, I is not defined right here when we get outside the function. So var, two rules. That's it. If you're in a function, anything inside of that function, if you use var, doesn't matter where you put var, if it's in a loop, using a for loop, anywhere, everything inside of that function when you type in var, everything has access to that variable. When you're outside of a function, if you use var outside of a function in like a JavaScript file, everything has access to that variable. That's the rules for var. Go ahead.
Just go back to the input set.
What?
You go back to the window. And also in there, like complement stuff, like you do maps on the left,
You mean, can I do what?
So like you've got complement stuff, and what if you want to do like length -2? Can you do that on that complement set?
Like here?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Does it work like that, or do you have to put it in brackets?
No, you can. It would just stop the loop sooner.
Yeah, that's all.
Yep. You could do that. Yep, 100%. So that's var. Here's why. Now I'm gonna move from var. So those are two rules. If I'm using var, either everything inside of a function will have access to that, no matter where it's defined, or if I use var outside here, then everything has access to it. So if I also forget to type something like var, what this does is immediately, you'll see. So I'm just going to remove var. We'll see what happens now. So I'm declaring I and I'm assigning 0 to it, right? There's my variable. I have nothing. How many people think I don't even know why I'm I inside. Yeah, I'm the I variable inside of the function. And then we have I'm the I variable outside of the function. What do we think the inside one's going to be? I just removed var. Any guesses? Go ahead. Error. Cool. And what do we think it's going to be on the outside? Go ahead.
I think it's going to be 125 for both.
Cool. Why do you think that?
Because if you don't do like var, const, or let, it becomes like globally available.
You are. Let's try it. Boom. Right? So that's what happens. So if you don't use var, if you don't use anything, what happens is it goes, I don't know where I was originally defined. I am now officially defined at the global scope, which also can be dangerous, right? That like breaks all the rules. So that's important to know. So rule 1, with nothing, everything, no matter where you define it, has access to it. Rule 2, if you use var, it's either scoped to the function that you have or globally if it's not in a function. Okay? Here's why let and const were made. One of the biggest reasons. Let. Now, same question. If I refresh, what are these going to be? What is this one going to be? Any guesses? Cool. Let's try it. Both are now undefined. Like you said, inside of the loop, we're still using I, right here. That works fine. But outside of that loop, see here, the loop's closed here. In the function, globally, I is not defined anymore. So let has block scope. When I say block scope, I mean it's like for loop is a block of code. Inside of this for loop, we have access to this I. Outside, we don't anywhere. So that's what let does. It's the only difference. Go ahead.
So I was gonna say, this is the thing that I always been confused with, like, because at the end of the day, I can use var, because if I know that I'm not gonna call that I anymore, it's the same thing. It's just like it can be dangerous if I'm writing a lot of code.
Yeah, so I would recommend never using var anymore. I would recommend using let and const. That's what is available now. You'll see var. There's a lot of old code and a lot of old habits, but this is let and const are from ECMAScript 6, which is like a newer version of JavaScript, and they will make sure that any of the, if you're like, where's my scope? I don't know. Just if you use let, it's literally the same thing as var, just it has like that rule to it. Cool. One more thing, but you're right. If you know exactly what you're doing, like.
Because in that example, what if I actually want to print what I goes? If I use let, I'm never gonna be able to.
Yeah.
I'm gonna need var.
Yeah, you could do that if you wanted to. Yep, you're right. So that's why I'm trying to also show you like each of what they give you, like step by step. So yep, you're totally right if that's something you wanted to do. So now const. Now what do we think is going to happen? Go ahead. Same? Cool. Go ahead.
Well, with constant, can't change the value, right? Or can it?
Yeah, cool. Let's try it. Refresh. Oop, looks like the whole thing broke. Uncaught type error. Assignment to constant variable. Click there. Right here it broke. Why? Because we're trying to change the value of this I. So all the rules that let has, const has, just one new rule, and that is once you assign const, you can never change it. So I'm going to show examples of these, but I'm just going to like walk through these rules again because they're important to know and a little funky. If I didn't put anything here, everyone can play with my I. That's how that works. If I put var here, if I'm inside of a function, anything in that function can like mess with var. But if I'm outside of a function, then anything in the whole file can use that var. It's globally scoped. If I use let is the same as var, just it's got block scoping. So you can reassign it, you can do any of the things you can with var. It's more tightly scoped to the thing you're using. And const is exactly like let. Just once you say const variable name like I equals something, you can never equals it again. You can never reassign it with equals. It'll break. It's meant to say, hey, this thing I'm giving you as a variable, it's designed to never be reassigned. And in fact, that's a great feature if it breaks. Someone else comes in and codes your stuff and they're like, try to reassign that. You're like, no. This is supposed to be like constant, like never changing. And that's why you would use each of them. One caveat on const that's important to know. And I just want to be really explicit because it threw me off the first time. So const high equals sup. So high is the string sup. High equals high. Assignment to constant variable error, right? You cannot change it. If I refresh, I'm going to fix this really quick. I'm going to use let. Refresh, everything's good. Oh, except for our console logs. I'm just going to remove them. Refresh. Cool, everything's good. Now, const. Okay, so I have my Kevin object. So if I say Kevin object, I don't know, try to say hi, right? It's going to break. But, oops, if I say Kevin object dot name equals Kevin object is updated. That's because what I'm talking about with const is you just cannot reassign whatever that thing is, right? So it's an object. I assigned this as an object. I can't say Kevin object equals a new object. That doesn't work. But since I already have the object, parts of an object are like you can add things to it, like add keys and values. And like if you look inside of what an object does, you can see it's got all these things you can do to it. You can like, and if you like go in here, you could say, I don't know, add a new key, age, 321, sure. And so you can add stuff to something that you've already defined, but you just can't reassign that variable. Does that make sense? Go ahead.
So inside of a function, can we use const because it's just defined inside of function, so every time it comes through, it'll basically be a new variable in that const?
Yes. So for example, if you used a function and use const, and then you recalled the function another time, the scope is like, it's not globally scoped, there's a scope to that function. Yep. Go ahead.
Sure. So I was going to say also that you also use const a lot for collections.
Yep.
A lot of collections, because you know that, like you said, you don't want to change what is an array, you want to change it.
Correct.
You want to
Do stuff with, exactly.
So const normally you use it for
Yes,
collections.
perfect. Yep. So what, like for example, let's just do that. The other one, it'll maybe make more sense than array. So you say const array equals, I don't know, let's just put a 2 in there. So array is 2, right? I can't be like array new like this. It's like, no, you're reassigning the variable. You assigned it one time. You can never assign this variable again. But I can do things, since it's an array, I can push and say like, add a new thing, right? So now my array has 2 elements in it. I can pop, and now I have nothing in my array. So you can do anything with that object or that array or whatever, you just can't reassign it with const. Cool? Go ahead. There is not a great way to do that, no, for the array. And the goal for const is just to not let you reassign a variable. Cool. Any questions on that? I just wanted to be clear on the difference between var, let, and const. I'm only going to be using let and const from now on. And I'm going to be using const when I don't want to reassign a variable. I'm going to be using let when I do. It's the only difference. Go ahead.
So the word array is actually like reserved now. And I can't do like let array equals to something else.
Nope. Yep. Cool. Exactly.
I was going to also compliment that the thing is that with const, the issue is that in memory, it's assigning that, like that portion of memory to that one. So that's why, for example, if you had a let, you can actually reassign it, but with const, you can't use that.
Yeah.
Just grabbing a portion of memory and staying there.
Yep.
Like it's untouchable.
For the assignment part, yep. It's just like protecting you from reassigning variables. That's the strategy underneath the hood, but yes, conceptually for what everyone needs to know, it's just like, can't reassign it. That's the reason. All right, so awesome. Let's keep chugging. Done. For each. So from now on, I am using for each from this moment forward, or any iterator. If there's a better iterator, good news is pretty much every single iterator you know in Ruby is available to you in JavaScript. So if you like your maps and your selects and your each and your find and all that stuff, it's all available to you in JavaScript. Some of them have different names, but they're the same things. Okay, so let's refactor this code. I'm going to remove this function now, just to have it like what we did before. And how I'm going to build stuff is I'm just going to incrementally kind of like go through one way and then make it better and then make it better and then keep showing you better things. So in Ruby, we have complements, right? We have complements. Like this is an array of complements up here. Just pretend this was Ruby world right here, array of complements. Strings, complements, looks exactly like Ruby or very close. Excuse me. How would you do this in Ruby? Pretend we're in Ruby. Go ahead. Cool, exactly. So here's how you do this in JavaScript. So you have for each instead of each. Your do and your end are replaced by parentheses. This is because this is actually a function on an array. And what that function takes is our good old friend, the callback. So it says, for each element, execute this code, right? So how did we do a callback for an event listener? The second argument, what do we type in? Go ahead. Awesome, like this, right? Perfect. So this is a callback. We say each time, so for each complement, just like in each with a complement, we go through each of the items in the array and we do something. We run our callback. We do some work on it. So this will call this function each time. So just exactly like how this works. So how would you guess how you could have access to like each of the complements in here? If you just had to guess based on what you know about Ruby. Go ahead.
You need to pass the parameters.
Yeah, just like I need to do a do with each complement, put it right here. Now, just like how you had event here, like this time it's going through each of these complements. For each complement, do something with like this stuff. Do stuff with each complement. So it's the same thing. We're very similar. Cool? And you have map, and you have filter, which is select. You have find. That's how these iterators work. Really powerful, very similar to the tools you already know. We're going to do for each. Later, we'll get into more things with like map and stuff like that. So how someone who gets nervous, how would we refactor this code so that we can use this for each, knowing that we can use complement right here? Someone who hasn't really volunteered yet. Pretty please. Yep. Yeah, I love it. From here, I'm going to comment this out. I'm going to delete this. Beautiful. Done. Yep. Exactly. Right? We have complement. We have complement. Same stuff. So that's what we're going to do for any iteration from now on. Any questions on that? Yeah, go ahead. Yeah. Yep. Go ahead.
So in Ruby, I guess sort of for best practices, we were told to try not to use each as much as possible and focus on maps. So like the others,
yes.
Like JavaScript have a similar thing.
Yep. Same mindset you have from Ruby, just apply to JavaScript. It's cool. You can start to see where like the languages kind of are similar but different, and like using the tools that you know and the mindsets that you know. Awesome. Cool. So we're using iterators. Go ahead. Correct. Yep, it returns a new array just like how Ruby works. Yep. Awesome. Cool. So we have now done these. Now we're going to get into the fun stuff. We're going to get into actually building a website using both our DOM manipulation and also our event handling skills. I'm going to kind of put them together. So I'm also just going to remove these fake deliverables from my code because it's distracting. So goodbye. I'm just going to take all this crap and just like hide it really far away from everything. Move this back up. I'm going to remove this. Put it down here. Comment it out. Normally I would just delete all this stuff. I'm just putting it in there so you can see it. I'm also going to put this down here too. Cool. So now our code is looking pretty nice. Like this is it. And so all of, let's see. So this ugly thing is back. So what I'm going to do is just delete it. That's what I would normally do. Done. Okay. So we're back to where we want to be to start actually building this app out. Let's check out what we want to do. So right now we do have a list of nice complements added, but what I want to do now is I want to be able to add a hug to a complement and see my hug count go up accordingly. okay? So what I mean by that is I want to click this hug it button, and I want, every time I click this, I want this number to go up. Hugged 5 times, hugged 6 times, hugged 7 times. So let's think of the steps that we would need to do to get this done. From what we know now, from the tools we have, what are some of the steps we need to do? Go ahead. Cool, awesome. What else? Go ahead. Cool. So I'm going to break down what you just said. You said we're going to like make a variable called hug count, and going to add like 1 to our previous hug count every when we basically like click the button, and we will do this in our event listeners callback, right? Awesome. Cool. Bonus. We will say 1 time and 0 2 plus times. Cool. So let's go through this. So basically, we've got kind of a thought process, right? We basically want to add. In order to add a hug to a compliment and see your hug count go up, you need to get an event listener so that like we can listen to all of the buttons. We need to kind of figure out somehow how to get our hug count for this compliment, and we need to add 1 to what it was, and we need to do that when we click this, so add it in our callback, and we need to interpolate our new hug count. Like here, we need to basically take whatever was here, and he's suggesting using string interpolation, so something like this, where we can like go from, you know, like hug count, where we have like, maybe it's like first 0, then it's 1, and you click it again, and it's 2, then it's 3. And a bonus, which if we have time we'll do, if it's 1, we'll say it's 1 time as opposed to 1 times. But we'll see if we get there. Cool. So first things first, adding an event listener to our hug button. So how do we want to do that? Go ahead. Yes. Let's look at our button. What is our closest common parent? Beautiful. Let's do it. We actually already have that right here. So we have that code. Done. Now what? Go ahead. Yep, we add our event. So let's, again, I don't like to code in my head, so let's just test it. Console.log. So one thing that thank you. Awesome. So one thing that I like to do is every time I write code, there's a purpose behind it. So I guess, and I want everyone to start thinking like they're detectives almost, especially when your code breaks, but also just like to have like real specific, like real explicit hypotheses about what we think will happen so far. So so right now we want to add an event listener to the hug buttons. So what I'm just testing if this code will work. Do we think this code will work? Yep. Okay. Yeah, we're going to test to find out, but in your head, I want you to have always an assumption of like what's happening, and I want you to validate it immediately. And do we think this will give us every hug button? Okay, let's test it. Refresh, click, awesome, click, awesome. Let's also do some tests just to verify other things. If I click this nose, oh, that also works. We don't want that, right? I don't want to click all this random stuff. I just want the hug buttons. So how do I do that? Go ahead. All right. So, and then what are we doing? Cool. I'm going to do just event.target just so we can see. Cool. It helps me to just kind of select the target and see like what I'm clicking on. So refresh. We want to click the hug buttons, but we're not doing that. We're only coming back with LIs. So only when I click the outside of the LI will this fire. Let's look at our code. Well, why do we think that's happening? Go ahead. And why is that? Yeah, we're only looking for the button itself. This code is filtering out, so it's like, nope, not firing when we click button. This one's only firing when we just click the LI itself. So like you said, we need to go to button here, refresh, boom, there we go, nothing, no LI, is just a button tag now. Awesome. Yep, and this is what I mean by just like quickly validating our stuff, just testing it so we don't live in like our heads when we code. Go ahead. Oh, cool. All right, all good. So now we have our buttons. Cool. Now what? So this code kind of like probably goes in here somewhere, right? This stuff. So we're going through each of our buttons. Like we have code that works on every single button, right? There's this button, there's that button. If I click this one, there's that button. So we have the first part. How do we like, so we have this too, event listener callback, cool. We're gonna interpolate our hug count. We're gonna add 1 to it. But where do we get our hug count from? Like that's a weird question. Go ahead. Count, hug count, cool. Okay. And then what? Someone else want to jump in? Go ahead. So plus is the same as plus equal 1. Do that, cool. Yeah, this and this and this are all the same thing. Cool. Okay. Now what? Go ahead. Yeah, I think we have to probably do something different in general with hug count. Let's just keep going. I'll pull it outside so you can see the difference, and then I'll show you a different way to do this. So let's keep going with this thought process. So what else are we doing? So we need to make a variable called hug count. This was the first part. Add 1, then interpolate our new hug count. So how do we do that? Go ahead. Yes, that's what we're going to do in a second. I like that. Yep. Go ahead.
I have a question with that situation. If you're already gonna change everything inside the function,
We won't, we'll wait. Let's just code through it and you'll see the answer kind of reveal itself. So how do we do string interpolation? Yeah, backticks. So we'll call this, I don't know, new hug text equals, and then what are we putting in here? Yeah, this. Cool. All right. Okay, so let's just console log because we're missing some pieces, but let's just see what we have so we don't code in the dark. Refresh. Okay, so right now it's just hugged one time, and that's it. So you were saying maybe if we take this hug count and bring it up outside of here. Let's try that. So, and again, like I said, I want to show different ways that you would probably think about doing it and then work through a way that I'm going to do and show you different options. So like, so we've got hugged 0 times, hugged 1 time. Cool, hugged 2 times, hugged 3 times, 4, 5, 6. Then this one's now hugged 7 times. So we just have one giant hug pile. This is all the hugs going. It's not what we want either. You had a thought of maybe like, what if we tie the data that we have like, and remember it maybe as an attribute on the HTML? That's exactly what we're gonna do. So first, before I do that, let's just get this code, even though if it's a little broken. There's one more piece. We want to interpret it, but we want to update our site tag, right? We want to update that. So we want to update our compliments site tag with the new hug text. So how would we do that? Go ahead. Okay. So like inner text maybe? Yeah, let's do text content. Cool. Text content equals this. Let's check it out. So I like this. Looks like it updated this one. Yeah, this is only updating the first one. Why do we think that happened? Go ahead.
Well, just the way we have it set up, it's only finding the first example of that.
Yeah, right now.
Site that it finds and it's stopping.
Exactly. Yeah, so right now we're like conceptually this is so close. We're just finding the first one and just updating that with new text, with new hug text. Do you have a thought?
Yeah, I was gonna say, make a variable called whatever and set it equal to current li that you're on. So it's like make a variable called li, let li equals event.target.
Cool.
And then you're gonna need to like go in there and you're on your target, so you need to access its sibling.
Okay.
Which would be site. I don't know how to do this.
So you're like current li tag, go to the site.
Oh, yeah, that's good.
Cool. Let's see what happens there. Pooped out. Wonder why it's being poopy. Let's see. Uncaught type error. Cannot set property text content of null. Click. Okay. Well, one more tool. If you're too lazy to write debugger, you can click on any line in JavaScript. And if I refresh, it will, when I click it, pause the code. It's called a breakpoint. It's a very cool tool. You can put as many in as you want. If I refresh and I run the code, it stops here first. I press play, stops at the next one, stops at the next one. Very powerful. Really freaking cool. If you're like, I just want to see what's happening right there, you can do it like see the error, put a breakpoint in right before, refresh, and it'll pause the code for you. Freaking cool. So let's go down, and the error was text content of like null. It doesn't have it, right? So let's see what's in here right now. Same error. Oops, I need to pass current. There we go. Refresh, clear the console, paste. Uncaught type error, cannot read property of text content of null. Okay, same error. So all we have to do is go back one. Ah, site tag is null. Okay, then we go back one again, and we're like, what the heck is current li tag? Oh, it's our button, not an li tag. Yeah, so let's do it. We can do it right here. Let's see, current li tag, which is actually the button. Then we need to go up one, right? Parent element to the div, right? There's our, oh, I stuck something in there. Whoops. I'll show you this in a second. So parent element, right? And then how do we get the site tag now? There we go. Now we have the site tag, right? So a couple things just happened. So now we have working code. We can, and like we can test it, right? Dot text content, that works now. Dot, I don't know. That works too. See, it's updated here. Cool. So we got our code working. Let's copy this part. And let's paste it over. So a couple things happened that are awesome. I'm glad they happened. One, we had a hypothesis in our head. Cool, we're on the current li tag. We were not. And because we have quick feedback loops, we were able to find out immediately because we're testing our code. Imagine if we let that go and we coded for like 10 minutes and then we're like, so I got this current li tag, and we're like, no, current li tag's a lie, man. That's not what you have. That's why you test quickly. So let's rename this. Variable names are important. If I don't name it the right thing, then I'll just keep thinking it's an li tag. So this is the current button tag. Now this code maybe makes a little more sense. So from the current button tag, right? If we look at our HTML, it goes current button tag, up one to div, then select the site tag. That's what we're doing. Traversing the DOM. Grab the site tag, update the text content to our new hug text, hugged X amount of times. Save that. Let's try this. So see how the code keeps pausing? It's because I have these breakpoints in here. Turn them off, refresh. Now they're gone. So let's try it. Hugged one time, 2 times, 3 times. Let's try this one. 4 times, 5 times, 6. Oh, it just jumped from here. Let's try a 0 one. 7 times, 8 times, 9 times, 10 times, 11 times, 12 times. So we're getting closer and closer to the functionality we want. We know that this, because we're testing, this is not what we want. We want to take whatever the current hug count. So like, for example, here we have 4 hugs. I want it to be 5, and then 6, and then 7. Or here we have 2. I want it to be 3, then 4, and then this one's 1. I want it to be 0, and I want to remember what it was. So what we need to do is we need one more piece. We need to tie our data to our HTML. Cool? So we're going to save an attribute of our hug count in our HTML. Go ahead.
Well, for the hug text, could you take that string and do a split over it, and then get the, I guess the one
Totally.
index of it, and then assign that to the current hug count, and then I guess do the plus over that once we do the event.
Totally. Yeah. So you're saying I'll refactor this code a little bit. So I'm going to take this, and I'm just going to call Let me let hug or site tag. So this is actually getting our site tag. This is what this code does. So now I can call it site tag.text content if I want to. I can also say, give me the text content of the site tag and do all the stuff you're talking about. So I'll put a debugger right here. Save, refresh. So I'm on this one. It's got 2, right? I click on it, pause the code right here. Let's look at site tag. It's this current site tag. We found it. And you're saying like text content split, and then let's split it on this. So this will find like this pattern and like split it. So see, now we've got it split here. I could do more crazy stuff. I could say like, I could either access the first, not the first one, it looks like, sorry, the second one. And then from there, access the first element. And then from there, turn it into a number. Cool, so I could do that. That would give me it. I could do it a bunch of different ways. I could do it other ways than this. So this could potentially work. This is a little bit, like if it's double digits, that would not be great either. I could fix that by doing other weird crap. I'm just showing you because like you'll see this type of code on the internet. Split, and I'm gonna split it now on this side. Oh yeah, I can't do that. I have to, see, it's getting a little complicated. And then I have to do this, and then this. And that also works, so what I'm doing there, you don't have to do this normally. So what I'm doing there is like, now I'm grabbing, first I'm splitting, here. I'll just clear this, you can see. So I'm basically, I take this text content, and then I split it on hugged space. So now I have 2. And then I grab the second element in the array, and then I call split again, and I put in the other side, space times, and now it's just a 2, and then I grab the first element, and then I turn it into a number. That's a lot of work, right? And yeah, there's ways that this can break. It's pretty rigid. So we actually have attributes in HTML to save data into, or information. Go ahead.
So in this case, can you actually like have a variable where you're gonna be using documents, query selector, all the buttons? So you make one function for the buttons just to change the claim, and inside that you make a first class function to just change the inner text on the sign?
I would not in the way that I think you're hoping. Yeah, there's a bunch of ways to do it. This is a really great way to do it, the way I'm going to show you. If you want to explore more, like after lecture, let me know and we can like play around with stuff. So let's keep going through this. So we did like this crazy way. So what we need to do, which is great because like this is the only way we really know how to get data. You're like, I have the number, or I'm going to get it. Like, I love it. So now what we're going to do is instead of this, I'm going to show you a new technique that I didn't show anyone yet. And that is data dash, what do we want to call this information? Any thoughts? Hug count. Cool. Go ahead. Yeah, so how many times when we create a new element do we start out with like how many hugs do we start out with? 0 right here, hug 0 times. So I'm going to show you a cool attribute you can tie information to HTML together with. So here we go. So if I just look at my site tag, I'm actually going to go back to my button tag, current button tag, right? This one right here, this is like the thing we clicked on, right? Also known as event target, right? And there's an attribute on any HTML element called dataset. data set is just like a key value pair. It's like a hash. And it's just like available in HTML. And it's used to save information about the HTML. So you could say data set hug count, camel case. Right now there's nothing. Let me clear this, move it up here. So hug count, nothing. I can say hug count is now 1. Now it's the string 1. I can go check out my data set and see, key value pair. I can go back and look at my HTML, and it added data-hug-count and just saved the data to it. So notice hug count is in camel case. Anytime you're using JavaScript with variables, it's camel case. Anytime you're in HTML, it's dashes. That's just a convention. So it just does that for you. Pretty freaky, but good. Cool. All right, so now that we know that we have this ability, here we can use this variable that we save right away to our HTML element, and we can start to use that as our source of truth. The other way is awesome, and we literally never had this data set ability, so the whole internet basically worked exactly like how we just did it before. We just be like, find this thing, grab the string, pull out all the information we want, and make sure that this is like the right thing, and then update it. Now we have the ability to tie data directly to HTML. Cool? So what I did in here, in our template, I just said by default, I want to start our data set, our data set key value pair store with a variable called hug count with starting at 0. I just hard coded 0. So now let's refresh the page and remove our debugger. Oh, did I remove it already? All right, cool. And refresh. Okay. So if we look at our HTML now, in our template, I just added data hug count 0 to every single one whenever we make a new one. There we go. Awesome. So knowing that, I'm going to finish us out with our help counts, our hug counts. So goodbye here. So instead of setting a hug count to 0 here, I'm going to say, get our button. So where do we put our hug count? What HTML element? Yeah, exactly, the button tag right here. We can, fun fact, we can put this on anything. If I was like, yo, I want to put it here, and I want to put it here, we can save data. We can put any data we want in here. I just put it on the button tag because it's convenient, because I'm looking for, I can either put it on the button tag or I can put it on the site tag, right? Either one. Maybe the site tag is even better because the information that we want to update is like right on it. So we can update and check out both. So I'll just put it on the site tag. Doesn't really matter. This is just what we're doing. So I'm just going to put it on the site tag. So now we have, instead of starting at 0 from this global variable, where should we start our hug count for each element at? Any guesses? Go ahead. Yeah, cool, awesome. Yeah, we did. We already started our count. So let's put a debugger right here. Debugger. Right, so we have all this stuff set up. Refresh. I'm just going to click on this one, 0. So let's look at site tag, right? Site tag. Check it out. Site tag dot data set hug count 0 dot hug count. Cool. So we have a starting point now. So we can say this is our hug count starting point for each element now, as opposed to a global variable. Goodbye. And let's put it down here. So site tag dot data set dot hug count. And now that we know that, let's take this code and put it down here, and this code and put it down here. Let's move this up. Cool. So what do we, I'm just going to remove these comments now. What do we want to do now? How do we have all the pieces pretty much right on the page. How do we put them together? We're like this close. Any guesses? Go ahead.
You still want to assign hook counts, so you still want to do the let hook count.
Awesome.
You can do parse in.
Awesome. You knew it was a string. I like it. Cool. So hugged 0, now hugged 1, hug 0, hugged 1. It's looking more promising. Oh, stuck at 1 still. We're so close. So why do we think, what's going on there? Let's go back to the code. Actually, here's what we can do. Let's look at the HTML. I'm going to go here. I'm going to hover over this. We're just going to watch this. Okay, so hugged count is 0, hug 0 times. We're going to click hug it. Updates 1, but it's not updating anymore. Go ahead. Exactly. Right now, we're getting our source of truth from this variable, 0, and we're not updating it. We're updating the presentation right here, but we're not updating the data. So the final thing we need to do is, we'll say, doesn't really matter where, but we need to take this information, this hug count, and I'm going to call this new hug count, just so we don't get confused, new hug count plus plus. So we're saying, cool, take the site tags data set, which was the variable hug count, which was 0, turn it into a number, plus 1 to it, and then take the new hug count and reassign what was there in the data set, and update the text. Let me put a debugger in just so we can see what the heck is going on. And I think we might be done with this part. So let's just click on one. Oh, what did I do?
You still have it as an integer. And
Thank you.
still a string.
Oh no, that's actually okay here, but this was, I was using the old variable. Yeah, how do I know that? How do I know that? It says hug count is not defined. Look here. Oh yeah, hug count's not defined. Perfect. Save, refresh. So now, let's look here. Click. We're in this debugger, so we have our site tag. And look, we already updated it. New hug count. We haven't updated our old hug text yet, but we're about to. But here's what we did, right? We said, you know, get this information. It was 0, now it's 1. We put parse int. We turned that string 1 into a number 1. We saved it to a variable. We incremented that plus 1. We updated our hug count on our data set, right? It was 0, now it's 1, right, on the HTML. And then we made a new template to say how many times we've hugged. And now we're about to take our old text in our site tag and update it with our new text. So I'm going to remove the debugger. 1. Let's watch the HTML because it's fun. 1, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Hell yes. Let's see another one. Cool. All right, any questions on that? So we just did a bunch of event handling and DOM manipulation. We're like really building websites and like bringing them to life now. Any questions on that part? Go ahead.
So automatically recognizes the string to integer conversion.
Yep, does it for us. All right, so this couple lines of code does all this interaction. One other weird thing, I have hugged 4 times, hugged 5 times, hugged 6 times, 12 times. Oh, it went to not a number times, non. That's cool. And now it's going to stay not a number. Let's check out what's going on in there. Hug count, not a number. Let's check out this one. Not a number as well. Why is that? Why did the first 3 behave a little weird? This one looks great. All the other ones look great, but the first 3 are a little weird. Go ahead. They're hard-coded. Yeah, they're in the UL, but they weren't made with data hug count built in, right? We have them just chilling here. I accidentally forgot to remove this one, so my bad. But I have to manually put them in, right? 4, then I'd have to manually put this one in. 12, like data hug count equals 12. We have to do that. I don't really want to do that. I'll just start them off brand new. So I'm actually going to delete them because we have a cool way to like just build all this stuff programmatically. But I like these quotes, so I'm just going to remove the quotes. I'm going to put them in my complements array. Cool. So now I have the first 3 in there. And I'm just going to be like, you know what? My website is awesome and completely just built programmatically with JavaScript. I just need a UL. I don't need anything in there now. Refresh. Still there. And guess what? Now these 3 images change randomly every time because they're being dynamically created. Cool. And everything works like it's supposed to. Any questions on what I just did there? I removed all the hard coding of my HTML, and now I'm just doing everything building JavaScript templates. Cool. All right. Good stuff. Now, create DOM elements using event listening. So we just did a bunch of updating, right? We found this tag, and we found this tag, and we went here, and we said, okay, go over to this tag, see what its current hug count is, update it, and like replace what was there with like the updated count. So that's like the update part. What I want to do now is I want to create. So crush that. I want to add a complement. All right. So actually, before we get into this, why don't we take a 5-minute break? And I just want to make sure we get into this specific one, and we'll go from there because I know this is a lot.